the American who escaped a Turkish prison, the real Midnight Express story. Before we begin, hit that subscribe button, because after this story, you'll think twice about what you carry through airport security and who's really watching you. Istanbul, Turkey, October 1970. The sky hung low and gray over the bustling terminal of Yeşilköy Airport. Tourists shuffled through the corridors clutching their passports, the smell of tobacco and diesel thick in the air. Among them was Billy Hayes, a 23-year-old American college student from New York. To anyone passing by, he looked like any other young traveler, shaggy-haired, wearing a casual denim jacket and holding a ticket to Athens. But taped tightly to his body, beneath his shirt, were 2 kilos of hashish. Billy's heart hammered in his chest as he approached the customs line. He had smuggled drugs before, small amounts, always slipping through unnoticed. But this time, something felt different. Maybe it was the way the guards were staring, their dark uniforms, emotionless faces. Maybe it was the humidity making the air feel like soup. Or maybe it was his own paranoia catching up with him. He tried to steady his breathing, but the weight of the hidden packages pressed against his ribs like a secret ready to explode. When the guard motioned for him to step aside, Billy's world froze. They took him to a small inspection room with peeling paint and flickering fluorescent lights. 2 men entered, one wearing an officer's uniform, the other a plainclothes detective with a cigarette dangling from his lips. They said nothing as they gestured for him to lift his shirt. Billy hesitated, eyes darting for a way out, but there was none. The officer's hand shot out, yanking up the hem of his shirt. The packages fell to the floor with a dull thump. The room went silent, except for the hiss of the detective's cigar. Billy quickly realized this wasn't just prison, it was survival. The guards barked orders in a language he barely understood. Meals were scraps. Sleep came in short, restless bursts. He learned to keep his head down and his mouth shut. Trust was currency, and betrayal could get you killed. But among the chaos, he met other prisoners. An Englishman who smuggled gold, a Swede caught with stolen jewelry, and Turks serving time for crimes they swore they didn't commit. They taught him the rules, the ones that weren't written on any wall but were carved into the souls of the inmates. Still, at night, as rats scurried in the corners, Billy would stare at the ceiling and think of home, his family, his friends, the New York skyline. Freedom had never felt so far away. Months turned into years. His appeal failed. His hope began to fade. But one day, a rumor spread through the prison like wildfire. The Turkish government was cracking down harder than ever. Sentences were being increased. Foreigners would be made examples of. When Billy's case came up for review, he expected mercy. Instead, the judge coldly extended his sentence to life in prison. Something inside him snapped. That night, as the prison lights dimmed, Billy sat in his cell and whispered, "I'm not dying here." He had no plan, no allies, no way out. But one thing was certain. He would rather risk everything than spend another day behind those walls. And as the first faint rays of dawn crept through the barred window, Billy Hayes, the American student who thought he could outsmart the system, began to plot the most daring escape of his life. What he didn't know was that escaping a Turkish prison wasn't just about slipping through the walls. It was about surviving what waited beyond them, because outside, danger had a different face. If you thought 30 years was a nightmare, wait until you. That evening, he sat by the barred window of his cell, staring at the slice of sky that turned from orange to black. Beyond those walls, people laughed, cars honked, life went on. Inside, time stood still. He made his decision. He would escape, no matter what it took. Billy began to observe the guards more closely. The shift changes, the patrol routes, the times when the lights dimmed and the compound went quiet. The more he watched, the more he noticed patterns, mistakes, human weakness. He also learned something important: the laundry building. It was located near the outer wall, a place where prisoners were occasionally allowed to work. He noticed one vent high on the wall, large enough for a man to fit through, if he could reach it and if no one was watching. But first, he needed help. Jimmy introduced him to Erich, a German inmate who once worked as an engineer. Erich had a way of finding solutions in impossible places. Together, they started small, testing the limits of the guards' attention, slipping notes under doors, timing their movements. Weeks turned into months. Each night, they whispered in darkness, their voices barely above a breath. Billy had to earn their trust. One mistake could mean betrayal. Everyone in prison dreamed of escape, but very few were willing to risk their lives for it. One night, during a thunderstorm that rattled the metal bars, Jimmy leaned in close. "There's a truck that leaves the laundry once a week," he said. "Supplies, linen, food. If you're in that truck when it rolls out, you're free." It sounded insane, but insanity, Billy realized, was better than obedience. The next days were spent in absolute tension. He began volunteering for laundry duty, working longer hours, gaining the guards' trust. He smiled when they insulted him, nodded when they barked orders. Inside, he was counting seconds. Then came the night. But what Billy didn't know was that freedom in Turkey came with its own kind of danger. Because once the guards realized what had happened, the entire country would be looking for him. And when they did, it wouldn't just be the police. If you've made it this far, hit subscribe, because what happens next isn't just an escape. It's a miracle carved out of madness. The sound of the truck's engine vibrated through Billy Hayes' bones as it rolled through the muddy roads outside Istanbul. The prison walls, the screaming, the metal doors, the suffocating air were fading into the distance. For the first time in 5 years, he wasn't surrounded by concrete. But freedom was still a fragile illusion. One wrong move, one suspicious glance, and he'd be back behind bars, or worse. He lay beneath the cargo bed, clinging to the truck's frame as rainwater dripped onto his face. Every bump on the road threatened to throw him off. The smell of oil and damp canvas filled his lungs. He counted the minutes, his heart thundering louder than the storm. After nearly an hour, the truck slowed. Through a slit in the tarp, he saw faint lights, a checkpoint. Turkish soldiers stood under a canopy, their rifles glinting in the rain. Billy's stomach turned to ice. The driver exchanged words with the guards, his voice casual but tense. Billy couldn't understand everything, but one phrase stood out: "Sagmalkilar." The guards were asking about the prison shipment. He froze, holding his breath as boots scraped near the truck. One guard slapped the side of the vehicle, laughing about something. Then, silence. The truck lurched forward again. Billy didn't exhale until the lights disappeared behind them. When the truck finally stopped at a small warehouse on the outskirts of the city, he waited. The driver jumped out, muttering curses about the rain, and walked inside. Billy slipped F. The journey blurred. Rain-soaked roads, the hum of passing trains, the ache in his legs. Once, he nearly got caught when police searched a bus he had boarded. He ducked into the restroom, locking the door as they checked IDs outside. His heart pounded so hard he thought they could hear it. When the bus moved again, he knew he couldn't risk public transport anymore. He walked. By the 5th day, he reached a small town near Edirne. The locals eyed him with suspicion. A foreigner who didn't belong. He traded his watch for bread and water, then hid in the woods, waiting for nightfall. The river was close. Freedom. A single crossing away. But it wasn't going to be easy. The border was patrolled by Turkish soldiers. Floodlights swept across the banks. Billy crouched behind tall reeds, watching, waiting for the perfect moment. The river was wide, black, and cold, but it might as well have been 1,000 miles across. He waited until the lights turned away, then ran. His feet hit the mud, his lungs burning as he splashed into the icy water. The current was stronger than he expected. Every stroke felt like swimming through concrete. Behind him, a shout broke the silence. A soldier had seen movement. Gunshots cracked through the air. Warning shots, echoes bouncing across the water. Billy didn't look back. He kept swimming, the cold cutting into his skin, the roar of the river in his ears. When he finally crawled onto the opposite bank, he collapsed, gasping. The world was silent except for the rush of water and the pounding of his heart. He had made it. He was in Greece. Billy lay there for hours, staring at the stars. Freedom didn't feel like joy. It felt like exhaustion, disbelief. He thought of the men still trapped behind those prison walls, of Jimmy, Eric, and the others who'd risked everything to help him. Days later, he reached the American embassy in Athens. When the staff realized who he was, they couldn't believe it. The American who had escaped one of the most feared prisons in the world. He was flown back to the United States, where his story spread like wildfire. Newspapers hailed him as both a hero and a criminal. Some called him reckless, others brave. But Billy Hayes didn't care. He was free. His story became legend, and in 1978, when Midnight Express hit theaters, audiences around the world watched his nightmare unfold on screen. The film shocked millions, exposing the brutality of foreign prisons and the thin line between survival and madness. But for Billy, the real story wasn't about fame. It was about freedom and the price it demands. He once said, "They could break my body, but they couldn't touch my will." And that will, forged in the darkest corners of a Turkish prison, carried him out of hell. If you thought escaping was the end, remember, some prisons don't have bars. They live in your mind. Subscribe now, because the next story might just prove that sometimes freedom comes with its own sentence.